The verdict was okay. So I would start from the very beginning. One time, James told me that he had his first burnout when he was 5 years old. He said that, he was asked to sing in a church, and he told your mom no. He said, I just refused. I was 5 years old, and there was my first professional burnout as a singer. Okay. So before we kind of go forward, how did music came to your life? Because when by the age of 5 you were already a performer, right, with a burnout. I mean, what happened before that? Who taught you music?
Well, no one greetings, everyone. I'm so glad to see each and every one of you. Uh, of course, you know that my father, Reverend J.C. Williams, was a lifelong United Methodist pastor, and which means that number one, we traveled to a lot of different churches where he was the lead pastor, which meant that every church that he would go to, there was a piano for the most part. Sometimes it was an abbreviation of a piano, but there was a piano there. In each church, I was the janitor, not each church, but for the most part, I was the janitor, which meant that I was in church all the time. I would see the piano and not know how to play, of course. And I taught myself some basic principles of, of music. I wouldn't call it music, but I would just bang, 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 bang. And I learned how to play basically whatever I wanted to play. I just learned quickly, and I would clean the church real quick and then get on the piano for a long time, a couple hours. At that point, people began to hear me, my mom and my dad, of course, and then they would ask me to sing on Sunday mornings. Of course, you know, in the United Methodist Church, we have all the occasions, Christmas, Easter, et cetera, and so forth, and all those kind of things. And so the churches were very small, mostly African American churches, which meant that I was the lead singer and probably, in a lot of cases, the only singer. And so, and so I would sing the songs. I would sing the song, the lead people in the songs. And I would do that so often that it got a bit laborious, a little tiring, but I would do it because mom and dad insisted that I sing. Well, as we moved from church to church, it became kind of a thing that I kind of dodged, but then I had to do church. One Easter, to make this story very quickly, one Easter, they bought, you know how you buy all the clothing, the nice clothing for the Easter parade, Easter pageant, and all that. And we had an afternoon service, as most United Methodist churches do at that time. I was set to sing Little David, Play on Your Harp, Your Horn. Little David, play on your harp, hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play on your harp, hallelujah. Well, I've done it maybe 30, 40 times. And my mom came over to the parsonage and said, well, it's time for you to go in and sing. And if you knew my mom, you don't tell her no. And I said, no, I'm not going. And she said, oh, yes, you are going. What do you mean you're telling me you're not going? I said, I'm not going to sing. I just don't want to. And I started crying. And she said, I don't care if you're crying or not. You are going to sing for God this Sunday, Little David. So get yourself out of here. You got brand new clothes on, you look nice, you're going to sing. And I said, Mommy, we call her Mommy. Mommy, I am not singing, and I quiet up. And I went numb. Mum is the word. And instead of her being the mother that she's always been, grabbing me and tossing me, she started laughing. And so she laughed because I refused to do what she told me to do. I just could not do it any longer. I could not sing that song any longer, and I quit. And I did not go, but I did go afterwards to receive the eggs and the the food and all that. But I could not go and sing that song. And I have never seen my mother act that way. Never seen her. I had no expectation of her ever acting like that, but she did. And that showed me that number one, I was appreciated. And number two, that she wasn't as hard as she put out to be. So that was my first burnout as it relates to singing. My second burnout was when I was maybe 8, and I'm going to do this expeditiously, if you don't mind. I was in another town. I don't know what town it was, but I was in grade school, and I was new to the community, and there was a guy there, a young lad like myself. I knew that he could sing very well. Of course, I knew that I could sing as well, and he got the lead part for a particular song that I knew backwards and front, even though I have never heard it. I just knew the song. I just understood it. And his name was Frog. And Frog got the part to the song that I really wanted. I really wanted to sing the lead for the whole little grade school group. And I told the I told the teacher that I want to sing Frog's song. She said no. I said, but I know it, Mrs. Whatever. And she said, no, this song is for Frog. You are not going to sing it. Get back in line and wait. I just started crying because I knew that I could sing this song, even though I was new to the community, new to class, new to everybody, but I knew that I could sing this song. But she refused. And that taught me a lesson as it relates to what I can do, what I cannot do, and how I should approach teachers and whatever. But that taught me a great lesson. So from that point on, I somehow knew internally that music was a thing that I loved to do. Music was a thing that I was born to do, and I felt it. It wasn't something that somebody had to tell me or to explain it to me or give me direction, because I had no one to give me direction. I learned it myself. And at that point, I started listening to music, listening to the radio. Back then, it wasn't TV. When I say back then, I really mean back then. Back then was a long time ago. We had radio, and I would just listen to the radio, and I would sneak and listen to the radio all night. When everyone else is asleep, I put the radio inside my bed, cover my head, and turn on the radio and listen to all kind of music. Of course, it wasn't Christian music. It was just music, any kind of music I could find. Sometimes it was so late that it would be classical music. And so I learned all kinds of classical music. That's how I really got started in this whole thing relative to music. Lastly, when I was maybe 9 or 10, my family, my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, we would gather at the kitchen table and have a birthday celebration. Well, it was my birthday, and I was so happy. Um, I received my first recording. It was a song by Harry Belafonte. Those of you who are young will never understand what I'm talking about, but I received a song. It was a 45 RPM by Harry Belafonte. It was Deo. Deo, Deo, daylight come and me want to go home. It's 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, whatever. Daylight come when I want to go home. And and that was so inspiring for me. My dad, Reverend J.C. Williams Sr., bought me that 45 RPM. And I cherished that little record because it really turned me on, so to speak, as it relates to the music that I want to do and the music that I wanted to help to create. So that's how it all started. That's a little snippet of how it all started.
You also mentioned, you told me one time that you were listening to a lot of records of gospel music with one of your grandmothers. Do I remember correctly?
Yeah, my mother's grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mother's grandmother.
Mhm.
She had those big, Joan knows about these big 78 RPM records. Of course she does. We would go to Martins Ferry, Ohio, where I was born. Was I born there? Well, my family is from Martins Ferry, Ohio. It's been a long time, okay, kids? We would go there for the summer because my dad would travel so much. He was an itinerant pastor. And my mom and dad would leave us kids there. My grandma, and we call her mom, had these 78 RPM records by old gospel groups. They weren't old at the time. They were the music. That was the music that we listened to. And she would invariably, during the week, stop me from playing. And she and I would spend the whole afternoon listening to old gospel music. And I must say that that's probably where I learned the intricacies of the difference of music, classical music, music from like the islands, Harry Belafonte, soul music. She taught me gospel music. And to this day, I remember each and every song that she would ask me to play. I remember it. It's almost like rap music because it was quick. It was a quartet, always male quartet. And I would learn these songs and she and I would listen to them all day long. And that took a lot of my time from playing, but it was what I loved to do. So that was a beautiful time
Was
in
it
my
like
life.
a blind Jebediah or Jeremiah? What was it? One time you were singing that song for me. Do you remember?
Blind Bartimaeus?
Yeah. You remember that?
Yes.
No, no, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
That's why.
Oh, uh, Black people couldn't speak English that well, so it wasn't. Uh, we said they said Barnabas, but it wasn't Barnabas. It's Bartimaeus. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, old blind Barnabas stood on the way. Blind Barnabas stood on the way. What old blind Barnabas stood on the way, crying, "Oh Lord, have mercy on me." Well, old blind Barnabas stood on the way. Blind Barnabas stood on the way. Oh, blind Barnabas stood on the way, crying, "Oh Lord, have mercy on me." And it would go on and on and on, of course. But it was the music that I really learned. I learned a lot of music, but that was the impetus for my love for gospel music, old gospel music. Yeah, so that was great.
Okay, so we explored a little bit the roots, right? Now, you told me one time that when you were in high school, if I remember correctly, and I can make it up, uh, that the song which you were actually singing in one of the high schools, because you were in many high schools, right? You know, because of your dad,
Yeah.
was Satisfaction by
What?
the Rolling Stones.
I didn't tell you about that, did I?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
What about it?
Well, I don't know. I would like to share it because I think it's cool, right?
Well, that was
here
kind
is
of,
a gospel music. Here is like Rolling Stones.
well, that was later on when I was, I think when I was in Muncie, Indiana, and I started a band called the Desert Rats. I don't apologize for that. Desert Rats. And the Desert Rats and I, we learned Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. I can't get no satisfaction. You remember, you all remember that. Mel don't remember that, bless your heart. But it was an old song. It was a new song at that time. And then I kind of deviated from the way the Rolling Stones did it, Mick Jagger and all that. And I had my own version of it. And in doing so, we got some gigs, it's called, we got gigs because of the way I did Satisfaction. And I kind of took it too far, and I kind of was too loud in doing so. And to the extent that it became something new to see a Black person standing up on a stage screaming of I can't get no satisfaction, but this is the way it was when I first started with the Desert Rats. That's how I started my new adventure in rock and roll music, and it was quite an adventure for me because it taught me some nuances relative to singing that was relatively new at the time, and I took that all the way to wherever I went in the world with singing.
Well, you went through Muncie eventually to Chicago, right? And how was Chicago for you? I know that you were kind of going back and forth between Muncie and Chicago, but how was that first sort of venture? I mean, how was your road before you kind of made your breakthrough and you actually started to work as a professional singer in the clubs and
Well, there's a little time span there. So I went to Chicago because my brother was there. He was a Chicago policeman, and his wife, my sister-in-law, was there. And I got on the bus one day, and I only had a nickel and a nail, and I went to I I went to Chicago. Didn't know where the heck I was going. I had to go to the west side to the Presbyterian St. Luke Hospital where my sister-in-law was working. I had no idea as to where that was. I had no idea where I was when I got off the bus, and I didn't have any money. So I walked and eventually found my way walking miles and miles to the west side of Chicago. And although it sounds a little bit crazy, but I was able to find my way. And one of the things I did was follow the L tracks. The L tracks was going to I would find out where is this L going, and uh, L is the elevated. It was the train in Chicago, and if it was going west, then I would go west, and I would follow the tracks all the way west. Needless to say, it took me maybe 2.5 days to get to the west side. No money, no food, didn't know a soul, didn't have a phone number. I had nothing. I was just walking. And I found my way all the way to Presbyterian St. Luke. And that's how I started in my career, so to speak, in Chicago. I did not go there to sing. I did not, that wasn't my intent. My intent was to to find myself. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say that I think is relative to what we're doing today in regards to Black history and in regards to not having anything and pushing forward to do something and to learn something. I did not go there to sing. I went there to work. I was working in Muncie at Sears and Roebuck. And so I knew how to work, and I had worked at other places as well. I was a good worker. I am a good worker. So not that I was, but I was a good worker. And when I just decided via my brother, Charles Williams, he was there and he said, why don't you come to Chicago? Chicago, everybody comes to Chicago. So I did go to Chicago. I went there to work and I found work immediately in a YMCA. And I worked in helping young people relative to being homeless and all that. So I did that. And that was the initiation into Chicago, and I loved it. It was also where, and we're talking about time, so I'm getting lost in my my time.
Chronology.
Yeah, I don't know how I was 20 something years old, I imagine. But anyway, I was engaging in talent shows. So any talent show that I heard about on the radio, TV, then I would go there, and even though for the most part I was probably the oldest person in the talent show, well, there was one dancing bear that kind of stole the show, kind of. And so when I walked into the theater, it was a Regal theater, and there were all these kids there. Of course, I was there, towering above all these kids who were there to involve themselves in the talent show and to win. I was embarrassed, of course, but I did it anyway. And I got my little number, 73. I remember that, 73. And it was kind of embarrassing, but I did that. And the little girls with the tutus on, and and they were doing kind of cute little things, and everybody applauding. At halftime, they took a break. Gladys Knight was the person, the star, who was supporting this whole affair. She asked me. Of course, she was big at the time, but she wasn't as big as she became eventually. But she was big, and Gladys Knight and the Pips. But Gladys Knight was controlling all the kids, me and the kids and the bear. She was the one who would tell us when to go on, when not to come on, and all that. And at halftime, there was entertainment. The entertainment was Michael Jackson, but it wasn't Michael Jackson. It was
Jackson 5.
The Jackson 5. The Jackson 5. Michael wanted to go to get some popcorn. Well, the dancing bear was out, so couldn't take him. And Gladys asked me, would you mind taking little Michael to get popcorn? I said, no, I don't mind, but I don't want to go out in the audience with, I don't want to do that. She said, please, I will make sure you will be rewarded, which I thought she'll make me the #1 person in the talent show, but she didn't. But anyway, so Michael was 8, maybe 9, something like that, and he wanted some popcorn. He wants some popcorn. I want popcorn. He was that kind of a rowdy little kid, but he was cute. I took him by the hand. No, I didn't take him by the arm. I took him by the hand. I said, let's go. Because we had to walk down through the crowd to the lobby. And I took him there. And when we got to the place where they had popcorn, he said, "No, no, no, I want more butter." I said, "Okay, Michael, she's giving you enough butter." No, no, he created this whole cloud of discord, and everybody's standing around looking at me because this little kid with the hair longer than his feet wanted to get more popcorn, more butter. I want my butter. I want to tell my mom, all that kind of stuff. But eventually, I said, "Will you please get this kid some more butter? As a matter of fact, I'll go get it and put it on there. You won't be responsible." She said, "No, I'll get it, but he's kind of loud." I said, "Yes, I know that, but he's going to perform pretty soon, but I think he needs that kind of energy," whatever the case is. So that's how I met Michael Jackson. I took him to get butter popcorn, but that wasn't the only time that I had a chance and an occasion to meet him or to meet the whole family, because I met them in LA as well when I was touring with another group, a big group. But that was the first time I met Michael Jackson. And that is very instrumental in my head, in that it was after the fact, years after the fact, that was very positive, in that he, as you all know, he had a very serious career in singing and dancing. But he was a cute, bad kid. Okay, I can put it like that. He's a cute, bad kid, but he was talented.
Extremely. So what was your breakthrough when you had, like, that moment that, you noticed? I know that you told me one story about your brother kind of playing some role into this, but, I mean, still, what was, like, it was a anecdote, but, when did you have your breakthrough?
The breakthrough was when I was, again, going from club to club, um, to a variety of African American clubs, singing. Uh, they would have contests, singing contests every week. And then the winner would have the opportunity to sing on the weekend and get paid for it. So I would go around to all these, my brother and I, Charles Williams, he's the one that really protected me. He took care of me, and he and I would go to these clubs, and I would sing a song. I would sing some popular song at the time. And I went to one very popular club that I was afraid to go to, because I've gone there quite often, and the performers were very good. They were excellent band, excellent singers, and everybody loved them. And they too were having a talent show of a sort. This time, I won. I won the talent show. I was singing a song that Joan probably knows about. "Oh, Danny Boy, oh, Danny Boy, the pipe," in a black club, Joni, come on. I sang that song, and I sang it a cappella by myself, because the band was like, what key, that kind of thing. So I won. And when I won, I was given the opportunity to sing that weekend at the club. And this was a very, very well-known club. I forget the name of the Green Bunny or something like that, whatever. But when I won that talent show, the band that I was going to play with or sing with had to learn learn a song. So I didn't know exactly what they wanted me to sing, and I told them that I wanted to do a song that's very popular. So I did, without knowing the song, I did "Down by the River, I Shot My Baby." It was a popular song.
Look at you.
I didn't. I later on I found out shooting my baby was drug related, but but I sing it in a way that that it wasn't as prevalent relative to drugs. I didn't know. I just and I sang it, and when I sang that song, the way I was singing it, the way I learned it in Muncie, where I learned how to sing Satisfaction, people fell out. They loved it. And I must tell you, I was relatively loud when I sang that song, but they loved it. They loved it to the extent that the band, which was the best soul band in Chicago, they hired me to be the lead singer for that band. Not later on that night, they hired me. From that point on, they had a job being the lead band for the Shy Lights. It's a group called the Shy Lights. For those of you who are young, you've probably never heard of the Shy Lights, and you never will. They hired me, and we went on tour with the Shy Lights as the lead band. My job was to open up the show and play the congas, and sometimes play the piano, and I would do so. It was quite exciting for me because I've never had that experience of touring. So we toured, and to the extent that we would tour with name groups, very big groups, Theodore Pendergrass, the OJs, Stylistics. I have toured with a lot of name groups, and I was the point person for each show, to the extent that we traveled not only in Chicago, this was touring around the country and eventually around the world. Yeah.
You said that, what was the Shy Light song, which was like your kind of like, thing, your number? Coldest Day of My Life?
The coldest day of my life, and again, younger people have never heard of this song, but it was a song that I learned, that we did, that I had the band learn, because eventually I am not a dominant person. I don't take over things, but I took over that band. Okay, I took over the band, and I was responsible for the song selection because I was out front. I was the front man, so I did all the front stuff. So people adhered to what I said versus what everyone else said. Anyway, but so I sang a song called "Coldest Day of My Life," and if you want to go into the prehistoric stacks of your music, if you uh, check out Shy Lights, written by Gene Record, who was the main singer of the group. That was a song that I again used my methodology of singing kind of loud. I sing kind of soft in the beginning, but I increased the volume level of what I was doing. And I got involved in it, not from a churchy perspective, but from a churchy perspective. Okay, how's that? And I love the song. I think it meant something special for me in my private life. And it became a song that people would ask me to do whenever and wherever I travel. Coldest days of my life. And I don't want to do anything of it. I don't want to sing it now. I might get teary-eyed or something like that, okay?
Didn't you say that sometimes, you got so involved into singing that you were like passing?
That was a secret.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I revealed it.
But sometimes I would get involved in the music, and I think that was a signature of the way I sang the song. Had nothing to do with James Brown or anything like that. I did tour with James Brown until the mafia stopped us. But anyway, uh, I would be involved in a song to the extent that sometimes I would even pass out. Does that make any sense to anybody out there? No, it doesn't. Okay, but anyway, I would pass out or I would be so involved in the song. I loved the song because the music was so beautiful. It was in is it a perfect key, and Gene Record, who wrote it, he wrote it for a specific reason, but it was really, really good. So that was the song that elevated the group. And I was with a band called the Scott Brothers, and that elevated the Scott Brothers in Chicago as being, continued to be the #1 band in that whole area. And we toured and did that song, and wherever we would go, that was the song that people would want to hear. To the extent that when we toured with Ike and Tina Turner, and we got the contract, and it was a long contract. I think it was 5 months, something like that. We would do songs and music, but then the songs and music was fronting off Tina Turner. We were the opening act, and people engaged us to the extent that they wanted to hear us rather than hear Ike and Tina Turner. Now, that's a novelty of a sort. I'm not bragging or anything like that. I'm saying that this is what happened. And we had a difficult time, but we toured with her internationally to the extent that they eventually did something to us, to the Scott Brothers. They put us as the second act versus, excuse me, they put us as it was Tina Turner, a couple more acts, than us, Scott Brothers. They did it so that they would go on, and by the time they would finish the other groups and Tina Turner, who would want to hear anybody, the Scott Brothers? Nobody. And the place would empty out because we were so good. We were the opening act. And we did a Sly and the Family Stone song called I Want to Take You Higher. Again, those of you who are young, God bless you, you don't remember I Want to Take You Higher. But Joan, even Stephen, you remember that, don't you, Stephen, Pastor? Yeah, oh, come on. And I would do that song to the extent one time that I went out into the audience, given my behavior patterns or insanity or whatever you want to call it. I went out to the audience, and the band had everybody engaged, and people would come from the balcony, and I would do this song, and oh, it was such a beautiful thing. But Ike did not like that and told me not to do it again because it was stealing focus from them. And they had, let me tell you, from an organization perspective, they were probably the best organized group we had been with. Ike and Tina Turner review was perfect. The sound system was outside the building. The sound system, the lights, it was just beautiful. But we were stealing focus. And they made us 4th or 5th or something like that on the roster. And then we had to break the contract because when it come time for the Scott Brothers and James, at the time they were calling me King James, don't hold it against me. Don't hold it against me. I didn't do it. I was no king of nobody, you know, but that's what they called me, King James. To the extent that I was released from that organization, from the Ike and Tina Turner Review, and the band was also that we had to move on, and we did move on. We moved on to other groups. We traveled with the OJ Al Green. We traveled with Al Green for a long time. We traveled with just a lot of different groups, a lot of people. With the top people in soul music, we traveled with. We even traveled with a group called Chicago. I don't know if it's a big band sound, but they were mostly white. Chicago group is. They were spectacular. Joni remember that. They were spectacular. As a matter of fact, we not only worked with them, they allowed us to play at their club in Arlington, Illinois, I think. They had their own club and they paid for everything. So we played there as well. So that was that was my introduction. But I left the Scott Brothers in, and I got with another group.
You didn't like Ike, did you?
Well, no, I didn't. No one liked Ike. I don't think anybody. I don't think Ike liked Ike. Okay, Ike was not a very nice person. He was high most of the time. I mean, no one else was high, but he was. I was joking, but anyway, Ike was high most of the time, and he wasn't a very nice person. His character was not very good, and we would hear the ruckus in the lounges and in the areas that they're dressing, the dressing rooms and fights, and it was just horrible. But the organization was beautiful. The organization was great. It was great. Organized. We would get paid on time. Everything was perfect except Ike. And but occasionally Tina and myself would get into some conversation. And one of the things that I remember her by back then was when she left her dressing room, she was in bad shape physically. And that's not a normal thing for her because she is in good shape. She could dance all day, and she did. But she was just beat out physically and psychologically. She asked me to help her get on stage. And so I took her by the hand and I lifted her up on the side stage and placed her on the stage, and how she looked at me when I did that, and I looked at her. It was a moving moment for me. I'm getting all choked up as I'm talking about it because it was special. It was special. Had nothing to do with anything else other than I knew she was having a difficult time. We all knew it, but there was nothing anybody could do, and yeah, that was it about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, how was James Brown? How did you, came in contact with James Brown? Because your own singing style from that time, and you were allowed, he was allowed.
James Brown and myself never did sing together, but I worked for his organization. His organization was run by his son, who hired us to go on tour with James Brown. I had not met James Brown, but we worked together on stage and stuff like that. Yes, but I have not had any close affiliation with him. Our only affiliation was the mafia. James Brown, it wasn't his son, had us doing bootleg gigs. We would do a job in New York, and they would book us in Philadelphia as well that same evening. So we would leave the job in New York fly to Philadelphia to do a bootleg gig and then fly to our next gig. That was a no-no. And the mafia found out that we weren't doing it. It was James Brown. He was making that money. He was making that money. And we did it for, I imagine, 4 or 5 months, to the extent that later on, that once they found out, they put a mafia guy with us on the plane, on the bus, wherever we were, wherever the money was exchanged, the mafia guy was there. He never said a mumbling word. And this wasn't Jesus. He didn't say a mumbling word, even if you played with him. And we weren't that antsy that we would play with the person like that. He never said a word, but he would follow us everywhere, count the money. And we knew that if we made a mistake, I will tell you this final story. The Scott brothers, our first job was our first big job was out of New York. Here you have a bunch of black guys that we all look like Sly Stone with the hair and the beads and the bell-bottom pants and the super bell-bottom pants. And we went downtown New York City, Manhattan. I'm telling you, we were down there in the thick of things. And we had a meeting with the producer. And we get there a little earlier. So myself and my band leader and others, the few of us, the band was big. We had a big band. We had like a 12, 13-piece band. So they all didn't go upstairs. But I went with them because I was like the lead singer. And I had never been exposed to anything like this in my life. I'm a preacher's kid. I say my prayers every night, all those kind of things. And we went upstairs in the elevator, and it seemed like the elevator never did stop until they got to the top. I'm like, well, something is not cooking here. Or what's going on? And we went to a big room. And instead of us knocking or finding someone to take us in, we're brothers, we just broke in, we just walked into the big room with all of and those mafia people. When we broke in, they grabbed their, let me put it like this, Amel, close your ears.
Amel is not here.
Okay.
Yes,
They grabbed their instruments, their guns, and point them, and guess where they were pointing the guns at? Myself and these black guys with the long hair and psychedelic pants and all that. First time in New York, and you know what? They called us bad names, expletive, starting with an N. You know what I mean? He said, if you niggas don't get out of here, I'm going to shoot every one of you. Of course, he wasn't playing. He wasn't serious, but they were eating spaghetti. They were eating, how Italian, I thought they would go there, da, 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 da. And then when we walked in, everybody got quiet and they grabbed their guns and rifles and shotguns and whatever. And they called me names that I have never been called in my life for any reason. Of course, my first impulse, I'm going to, I'm going, I'm going, I was going to, and then somebody from behind me, one of the leaders, he pinched me. He pinched me. He said, "Shut the F up," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? He can't be." He said, "That's the mafia." I had never met any mafia in my life. That was the time that afterwards, after a couple of years, they sent that guy on tour with us. But that was my introduction to New York City, Manhattan, and that was my introduction to what people believe that the mafia is in the business. No, mafia is in the business today. They run it. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good or bad, it doesn't make any difference. They pay well, but they don't play. And we did several gigs, jobs for them, a different set of mafia figures in Chicago, but they pay well, but they don't play at all. No conversation, none of that. But anyway, I
You
think I've
said
talked a
about
lot.
no, that's great. I mean, you told me one time about this singer who kind of like, was sick and he wanted to quit, but he was not allowed to.
The singer that I told you that wanted to quit the business was Jackie Wilson. Joan, you remember him? Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was sick, and he was part of the package, the touring package. He was probably one of the best singers in this country. He was African American, nice looking, all that, and he was sick. He was sick because he's worn himself out. He just had a lot of women, and uh, he was just worn out. He was still sharp, dressed very well, and nice guy, always laughing and enjoying himself. But he wanted to quit, and we were on our way to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, to another big casino club. And Jackie told us he's not going to go. He said, I can't do it. Physically, he said, I'm sick. I can't do it. And so he told the promoter, who is, of course, you all know that they're mafia figures, the promoter that he can't do it. Well, I saw something that I've never seen before, and I don't think I ever will, as it relates to this whole business. They grabbed Jackie, even around us, and they hung him out of the window by his wrist. They had cords around his wrist. They hung him. And they said that if you do not perform at Cherry Hill, if you're not wanting to perform at Cherry Hill, this will be your last job tonight because we're letting you go. Of course, Jackie changed his mind, and it just scared me. It scared me to death. I was young. I didn't know anything about these kind of things. And it's in 2 months when Jackie was still in Cherry, in New Jersey. That's where he died. He died on stage because he had a bad heart. This is the nature of the business that people are wanting to be in. And let me tell you that it's not changed. It's not changed because of time. And I'm not accusing anybody or anything. I wouldn't do that. But I know that the people who run the business from a large perspective, I can tell you so many other things, but I'm not going to. There's some devious people in the business of creativity and music and song and theater. And it makes them a lot of money. And the one thing that you don't play with when it comes to that kind of a thing is their money. And through my experiences, and I've had many others, I've learned how to navigate through that business to the extent that I eventually navigated myself out of the business because it wasn't something, this is not something that I believe I was born to do. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say for those of you who have remained here, is that in choosing a profession, you never know where it's going to take you. You never know what's going to happen to you. And that if you do this, and it doesn't have to be music and creativity, it could be anything. Yes, you have to be selective, but you have to do, in my opinion, in my opinion, there is something else in the equation, and that is, in my perspective, God. Not that God is going to be the buffoon standing around kicking everybody's butt to protect you or me. No, just to know that you are in hands of something bigger than oneself, and you believe it. The inspiration, especially in creativity, is of God, in my opinion. It is not just something somebody want to do because they can do it well. It is of God. It is of music and creativity. If there ever was a touch of the unknown God to humanity, it is through music. When Joan and I worked on a project many, many years ago for the United Methodist Church, and I don't even know if I congratulated her or thanked her for all the tremendous work she did in regards to the music, writing the music, putting it together, helping me to celebrate an occasion in Indianapolis. It was at the RCA, it was called the RCA Dome there, I think, then, with a miniature orchestra, wasn't it? Uh, it wasn't a full orchestra, but we put that together in a month or so, maybe a little longer. And they're talking about that performance with a chorus of kids, young people, and an orchestra, and Joan guided us through this whole process. And it had to be the hand of something bigger than myself and Joan. It had to be. It wasn't anything that we manifested in ourselves. It was something that led us and guided us. Yes, it was tough because she was dealing with all original music. It wasn't music that she could go get it off the music stand and play it and teach it. No, I wrote it all. And she had to translate the music. This is not relative to just creativity. This is relative to life, especially to African American people who are afraid to make that step into life and into love and into their life as it relates to who are you? I have been around the world in different places, not just in music, but in theater and other things as well. It wasn't my choice. I didn't say that I was going to grow up to do this and do that. No, it was done for me. I knew, I understood it when I was a little kid on a piano in this little church, and I would bang on the piano and find things that I like. I enjoy the songs, the chords, and put it together into music that wasn't James Williams. That was something bigger than oneself, leading and guiding this kid into something that he had not known, that he grew to love and understood in a way that has taken him on trips to different parts of the world, meeting so many different people, so many different kinds of people. It wasn't just a Black thing or all that kind of silliness. It was a thing where engaging something that was bigger than oneself and sharing it with people. A song, just a song moves a nation. My grandma and her little 78 records playing She and I under a potbelly stove, playing that music moved me, moved me. Well, as a kid, it didn't move me. I just liked the music. But no, it was more than that. It was more than my dad just giving me a Harry Belafonte record. It was more than having to walk miles all the way from the south side to the west side. It was more than that. It was more than all the places I've been and all the places I've been across the world. And that's something else I don't want to talk about now. It's more than that, but it is special in that you never know until you know. And when you know, you hang on to it. For us, for Joan and myself and others, it's creativity. It's the love of God in us. But the love that we are receiving is not our love as much as it is God's love. It's not James. I was a little kid. I didn't know anything. Oh, oh, I know that I like the way those chords sound. And Joe, just to give you an idea about that, when I started on a new adventure this last year and was thinking in terms of writing music, and I've been writing music all along, writing songs all along. I had the occasion to meet a person, and she said, "You know, I play the violin." And I go, "Well, I didn't know that." She said, "Yeah, I play the violin. I don't play it much and all that." And she said, "That's one of the things that helped me in regards to life." And I said, "I don't understand." She said, "Well, I don't play well." I said, that's okay, but it's music." And she said, "I just play the violin by myself." And I said, "But, you know, there's a war going on in your country and everybody's in jeopardy. And that's it." She said, "Yes, just music." And after she shared that with me, I reordered my thinking relative to music. Whereas I was going to go this route, I simplified what I wanted to do as it relates to music and sharing it with people. And it took me back to the time, as my special person here took me back, to a special time when I was a kid and how simple the music was, how devastating it was when I felt it running through my fingers. And I said, wow, I got away from that music, and rightfully so. But she brought me to simplicity of music, and the hand of something bigger than James, King James, bigger than me. And for that, I am forever grateful, regardless of how old I believe I will get, or how many mountains I had to climb, or how difficult things were, how worried I am about my children, how worried I am about my friends, how worried I am about this war in the world. God is music. And you don't have to run far to find it, you just do it. Joan she just does it. It's in her bones. It's in her life. It's in her aura. It's her gift to people. Stephen, preach the word. You don't have to ask how, when, why. Is it going to be good or bad? You do it. It's you. It is your offering of love to God for people who are in trouble on this planet. And with that, my lady is telling me,
No,
Jamie,
I'm not telling you anything. I'm just so happy that you know that. Actually, I'm so glad and grateful that you came. And I mean, there are of course tons of other things I want to ask him. I want him to tell us about, the playing in the White House. I want him to tell us about his playing and stealing the show and playing on grand piano in American Embassy in Moscow, and I
can we do
want
a part two of this?
I want him to talk about, like, his fandom, okay, and all of these women, right? Hey, I mean, he was like yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I know that you found wife eventually in one of the clubs, okay? We know that too. Okay, but but yeah, but I want, and like, about circuits, and kind of like touring on the south, right? Because I think that this is just so precious, right? And it's this is the history which we sometimes really don't hear. Yes, we focus on big names, right? Big names are still there, but what you're kind of bringing up is this big names sort of like watched from the offstage, which I think that is just so interesting, right? So saying all of that, uh, we're planning to do maybe, like, in a couple of weeks, another sort of like, a conversation with you, maybe also to talk a little bit about theater, things like that. But well, it's like, Q&A. Do you have any questions to James before we say goodbye?
No, my dad gave me a 45 too, James, and the title of it was Bees That Way Sometime.
Ah!
I remember getting a 45.
Serious? Oh my gosh, that was my first recording I've ever done in my life.
Yep.
That's amazing.
We want to know the story behind it.
But thank you for sharing your story. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, I love you, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, so, we kind of like, covered almost hour and a half. So thank you so, so much for joining us, for being with us. And, please, if you're interested in part two or just chatting with James, because we were also thinking, that, Zoom kind of like, it's nothing like meeting together, right? But sometimes it's impossible. Yes, we live in different towns. Yeah, and so maybe kind of like, after these conversations with you, what we are thinking is to setting up maybe once a month, kind of like have a coffee with James, right? And just like friends, right? Let's get together, let's chat, let's share. But thank you so much for coming, and have a great Sunday, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Love you muchly.
Love you, man. Love you.
Thank you.